Right. Hello again, everybody. So this will be one of the first videos on for week 3, and our first video for the section on Saint Augustine. So when we think about Saint Augustine, we need to think about major philosophical movements in his life, and so a lot of the texts that we have from him are autobiographical texts, right? And where he's doing philosophy as well as going over events in his life. And so, for a large part of his life, uh, Augustine was a Manichee, right? And so there was just a little bit about this in the text that you read, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the Manichees. So the Manichees were a heterodox subsect of Christianity, right? They had a dualistic picture of reality rather than like a monist Christian standard Orthodox picture of reality. So the idea here is that the traditional Christian teaching is that evil is, or that God is in no way evil, right? So uh, God is all powerful and all good, which means that evil is like particularly tricky to deal with. And so a lot of Christians will say that, look, evil is a kind of privation. There is no actual dualism, right? Where there's a struggle between good and evil. Now, the Manichees taught that there were two gods. So they buy into this dualistic picture. There's a good God and an evil God. And these two gods are constantly battling with one another, right? And so we get to this question, well, where do we come from? How does these views or how does this story account for us? So the idea here is that the evil God, in a particularly brutal attack, chops off big parts of the good God, right? And that's our souls. So our souls are um, the little pieces of the good God, right? And so what the evil God did is he took this part of the good God and he put it into all of these material things, right? Namely our bodies. So our bodies come from the evil God, where our souls come from the good God. And so the idea is that we need to return our souls back to the good God so that he can be powerful enough to fight back against the evil God. Okay, so Manichees think that, look, we can't reproduce, right? Because every time we reproduce, we're dividing the good God's soul among more bodies, and that means that we have to wait for more people to die for the souls to go back, right? It's really interesting, but the idea here is that there's a conflict between good and evil. Good and evil for the Manichee are two different but equal forces that are working against one another in this mythology. Okay, and so why should one accept Manichaeism? Uh, Augustine is tempted to accept Manichaeism because it explains the problem of evil. Okay, so what is the problem of evil? The problem of evil is the conceptual problem of having a good and powerful God, right? An all good and all powerful God, and the presence of evil. Okay, so here is a traditional doctrine. God is both omnipotent and omnibenevolent, right? So omnipotent means God is all powerful, right? So that means there is no action such that God can't do that action, or however we want to flesh that out. But we can imagine that God is so powerful that he shares power, say, with us and with other natural phenomenon, right? But there's nothing that God can't do, right? God can never be thwarted. Okay, and then omnibenevolent. God is omnibenevolent, meaning that he's all good. So God can't do evil, say, right? Which might be a problem already. So, so we could ask ourselves, all right, so a good and super powerful God created the world. So, like, why is there all this evil? Like, why is there all this suffering, right? Like, why is it that I can do something that causes people pain rather than like benefit those people? Or like, why are there hurricanes? All these sorts of things, right? So a couple of possibilities open up. Here's one. Maybe God's not good, right? So maybe he's all powerful, but he's just like a little bit evil. And so he lets all these evil things happen because he's not all good. We might think that God is all good, but maybe he's like not all powerful. Like maybe there's something else that's like getting in his way from preventing all the evils, right? So that's like an explanation. And maybe there's just no God, right? So that's like another possibility too. Maybe the problem of evil shows that God doesn't exist, right? So these are three possibilities that are like troublesome for somebody who believes in a good and powerful God, right? So Augustine is attracted to Manichaeism because it can reconcile the problem of evil, right? So it says that, look, pretty much it denies two, right? So God is not all powerful. God's like super powerful, but God is all good. But there's an equally powerful evil force that God has to conflict against, right? So we'll see. I mean, you know, if you explore Augustine further, you're going to see him responding to Manichaean arguments, right? So these that serve as kind of his interlocutor. So it's important for you to know that. So today we went over some like kind of the mythology of Manichaeism, and then how the Manichae doctrine can offer a response to the problem of evil.